We're here.
I was telling CJ, Mike, before you signed on, it really felt like we were doing... I know when we do the playoff podcasts, it's always the same amount of podcasts, but this year it felt like more of them somehow. It felt like we were doing them every day. And so going a week in between podcasts has felt like just an indescribably long amount of time.
Yeah, it's definitely every year feels like more podcasts during the playoffs.
Yeah.
And yet they've never made the conference finals during the time frame of this podcast.
Right. Like the we've never gone. Can you imagine? I actually don't even know. I get to the point at the end of the second.
We may never have to imagine. The Sixers just generously letting us have
off the hook
time off.
Yeah.
CJ, you're getting a haircut, what, 3 times a week these days? What's going on?
Yeah, just about. It's my average. I found a good place. I got a nice little walk to it. It's part of my monthly routine. It's like once a month now.
Once a month? Is that what you do? I do every 2 weeks. When I one thing that happened when I feel like I made it in my career, I was like, I always wanted a haircut every 2 weeks. So I was like, I'm gonna fucking do it.
Maybe if I was going into work, I would feel more inclined to. But this is the most airtime anyone ever sees my head. So it's all for it's all for myself.
We're doing it right now. We're doing the unveiling. Every time we do a podcast, it's the
hair unveiling.
That's it. Yeah, it's a big moment for me every time, primarily because of my hair.
Good.
Yeah.
Last thing, do you think your barber would allow you to produce the pod while you got a haircut?
It'd be a little tough. It's pretty loud in there. I like it. Music's playing pretty loud.
If we give them plugs, would they do it at your house, do you think?
It's like a mile away. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. I'm not that important yet.
Okay. All right. Would love to see you get a haircut on the pod. So whatever. The Rights to Ricky Sanchez podcast is presented by DraftKings Sportsbook. Sign up for DraftKings Sportsbook by using promo code RTRS. Brought to you by MortgageCS. Become a MortgageCS Ricky VIP by going to mortgagecs.com/Ricky. Adam Ksebe, the official realtor of the process. ProcessRealtor.com. LL Pavorsky Jewelers, where Rights to Ricky Sanchez listeners go and get engaged. And Kinetic Skateboarding. Get 9.1% off your first order with promo code Dave Silver. On the show today, the Lakers have not lost hope that they'll be able to score an incredible coach, one Doc Rivers. We discussed the ability of the Sixers to make a move without trading Tyrese Maxey. The rest of the NBA playoffs go on, even without us, and we dip back into the mailbag. I mentioned Kinetic Skateboarding. This is really, I would say, the golden time of year for Kinetic Skateboarding, as it's not too hot. It's, we still have chilly nights. The clothing that they sell, there's just clothing for every time of the day. The hoodies for the evening, the t-shirts for during the day, the shorts for skateboarding. And Mike, I would think that we're due for another pair of the mesh shorts too from Kinetic, right? A third color.
All the time.
Yeah. We did the blue, we did the black. Anyway, go to kineticskateboarding.com and use promo code Dave Silver for 9.1% off your first order. Also, sneakers you can't get anywhere else. And a member of the Ricky community could use your help. I did a separate video on this, and we tweeted it out. But Mike DeTore is a Ricky listener whose friend emailed me last summer, and he actually was diagnosed with brain cancer last summer. And spoke to him for a while. He was going through treatment at the time and seemed pretty optimistic. And then recently they discovered another tumor, which is inoperable. Mike has a wife and 2 kids and is a genuinely great dude, and his family could use help right now. So if you are so inclined, we will put the link to the GoFundMe in this podcast description. Thanks to a lot of Ricky listeners. They've raised over $30,000, and I think their original goal was $7,500. But we love you, Mike, and we are thinking about your family. And if you are, again, if you can spare $5 or $10 or whatever you can, the link is, and we'll put it in the chat. CJ will put it in the chat here if you're watching live. Without any further ado, Amos and the chef.
say the name. Say the name. We were right, y'all. We were right. Even when it went wrong, we were right. We were right, y'all. We were right. So say the name. 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 I say the name. I say the name. Say the name.
Rights to Ricky Sanchez forever.
Welcome to the Rights to Ricky Sanchez podcast. I'm Spike Eskin, along with a guy who will not sign at a discount. He wants the full 5-year max. That is one, Mike Levin.
Was Tyler Johnson on the Sixers this year?
Tyler Johnson and what's his name? The center from the Kings was on the Sixers.
Well, Willie Cauley-Stein. Yeah.
Willie Cauley-Stein was on the Sixers too.
Tyler Johnson feels like several years ago. Man. Could have used him in the playoffs.
Yep.
Could have used him in the playoffs. Could use anybody. Imagine having any sort of length or ball handling or anything other than a center that can't play on the bench.
What made you think of Tyler Johnson?
I was looking at the cap sheet, and they still have like weird guys on there that like aren't actually on the team anymore. But I did forget. It's been a year. Every year is a year. Yep. Every year with the Sixers is a year, and then it's also several years. And this is the first time I've thought about the Sixers at length for
a week
since the last time we did a podcast. So it's been a nice little break.
Yeah.
And as the intro song was playing, and I'm looking at the video and stuff, and I'm just my first thought, I was like, you introduced me like something like "How you feeling?" And I was just like, the word just like "bad" came to mind. It was like right away, I'm back, and we're upset, and this is the team that we have hitched our wagon to, whatever dumbass reasons we have.
As we begin, CJ, could you bring up the video from that tweet that's first in the rundown? There was, I give credit to Twitter user Walk with Lyle. Lyle, I had a block about a year and a half ago, and he sent me an email asking why. And I just said, Lyle, you reply to too many of my tweets. And everything you want to discuss, and I just don't want to discuss it. I was like, this is about me and not about you. He seems harmless. He was very pro-Ben. Anyway, he was the first one that I saw post this. This came from the HBO Max show, which I have not seen. Have you seen the show, Mike? Hacks?
I watched the first season, yeah.
Okay. Oh, I didn't realize it was more than one season. So this is a clip from the show Hacks.
Anyway, point is, I do always remember this thing he told me about this one team. Their motto was trust the process. And I remember thinking like, that's a good philosophy. You know, like every game, win or lose, it's just part of it. You're on the path to something bigger, so the individual setbacks don't get you down. So maybe just trust the process. Oh my God, would you just order a glass of wine or something? I'm trying to be good. Well, then get back to being good tomorrow morning. Don't make me drink alone. I mean, what else are you good for? Oh, Marky!
What can I get you?
I'll have what she's having.
Sure. Also, sorry to eavesdrop, but that team you were thinking of is the Philadelphia 76ers.
Yes, right. So did it work? Did they win a championship?
Oh, no, they blow it every year. They suck.
So we did get a few emails, Mike, asking if you had written that scene. I think your Sixers references are probably a little more less obvious than that one was.
Yeah, 7 trillion people sent me that clip. I was alerted to that joke existing.
Oh, really?
Prior
Before
to it airing. And was rooting for the Sixers to win doubly so that joke wouldn't work. And the Sixers decided to lose so that the joke would play. That's generous of them. Well,
they're
yeah.
You You know, I mentioned to Mike before we get going on the Doc Rivers stuff. I can't believe we're going to talk about all this stuff again. But before we get going, I mentioned to Mike O'Connor in the Ricky's Mike O'Connor after he had written his latest column for the website, which is 3 big questions for the Sixers. It was very good. I mentioned to him, you know what's sad is like, it feels like we're in a time where every criticism of the Sixers feels like it's like kind of true. You know, it's like Embiid never stay healthy. It's like, yeah. Harden's fat and slow. He doesn't care about the team anywhere. It's like, yeah, maybe so. Matisse Thybulle can't shoot. That guy can't even, he's just like playing 4-on-5 and you're like, like it's every single one of them about the current Sixers feels like it's legitimate. Like it's really painful to hear it because there's nothing, when I see people arguing the opposite of those criticisms, I feel like they're crazy. Like it's a bad time. I feel bad about it.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a tough few years of getting, you get one of the best players in the league and he improves to a certain level and you just have not found a way to succeed at the highest level. Yeah, I mean, Embiid was healthy for most of it. I can't blame him for taking an elbow to the face. You can blame Doc for not playing him. I didn't at the time, but in retrospect, obviously, he shouldn't have been in the game. But an elbow to the face is an elbow to the face. And he would have been fine playing through the thumb thing. But yeah, Harden wasn't as good as they have to. Matisse hasn't improved.
Tobias is overpaid. It's like the Jason Kelsey.
We got some good Tobias in the playoffs. And we can appreciate it, even though it didn't. Right. The last couple of games were rough, but we can appreciate the things he did. Yeah, I mean, it's just got to be a big offseason. It's just got to be a big offseason of like making decisions that work, like decisions that pay off. Like last year, bringing in Niang, fine, paying Korkmaz $5 million a year. Okay, maybe a little bit light, but like as a totality, the bench just was never there and never good enough, never versatile enough, never explosive enough. They draft Jaden Springer, who I think is a really good prospect, but like I wonder if it's going to be here because of how reluctant Doc is to play people, to play young guys, and Bassey's good, nice player. I think he'll play at the NBA level for a long time, but I don't know if it'll be here either. So it's like, what really worked last offseason? Obviously the Ben thing was hanging over everything. We talked about that last time, but it needs to be like they need to hit like a bunch of doubles this offseason at least. And it's when you have a guy in his prime like Joel, just every decision is so big. And if they fuck it up, then they will keep fucking it up.
It's the truth. So this is we'll go with Doc, and then we'll do the Maxey, the trade stuff, and the roster building. But first is Doc, because I think that's the first that will be addressed in any way. So the Lakers, through Woj and Shams, announced their finalists for the job, including Kenny Atkinson, who will never in a million years get the job, Terry Stotts, who on some level feels like the next Lakers coach, if it's not Doc Rivers, or Darvin Ham.
I think it's a totally fine list for the three of those guys.
Yeah, well, I just don't think it will be any of them. Look, Atkinson, there's no way you can put Kenny Atkinson in charge of, I don't think, given what he is famous for doing, putting him in charge of LeBron and AD. Like, he seems like an intense talent development,
What do you mean by what he's famous for doing?
Well, his way, like the star players in Brooklyn did not want any part of him. Like, he just seems like, he doesn't seem like the ego massager type guy that you would want in Los Angeles.
Famously wanted to play Jared Allen when everyone else was telling him to play DeAndre Jordan.
Yeah.
And then they traded Jared Allen for almost nothing. And that was a mistake.
So then while that's happening is the Sixers obviously not only say that Doc Rivers is going to be back, but leak to multiple sources that not only is he going to be back, but they're fucking thrilled that he's going to be back, and Doc wants to be back. And it all seems like...
I love that leak. It's a good leak.
Yes. It all seems like, and I think I had mentioned this after Morey just said he was going to be back, it all seems like this is a staring contest because Morey basically has nothing to trade at this point. You know, especially like let's say, for instance, the Nets decide to take this pick, which they probably won't. That the Sixers, outside of Maxey and Thibault, can't trade any first round picks because they could trade swaps, but they can't trade first round picks. So this is an opportunity for Morey to get something at least, an asset, a token out of the Lakers. And I just wonder how far he is willing to stare. Like how long he's willing to play.
The Lakers are rife with assets to trade either.
Right. Yeah.
So if it's a second round, I don't. If he gets a second round pick out of trading Doc, God bless him. Go ahead and get it, Daryl.
I just wonder if he'll overplay his hand here.
What's the worst case scenario?
They keep Doc Rivers. Which, and by the way, I have repeated my stance over years and years and years. I don't think coach matters that much. I think Doc Rivers is annoying, but I would say that the Sixers have a very, 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 not that all teams don't, but the Sixers have a very, 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 very thin line they have to walk to a championship at this point, right? Like every little tiny thing matters. And I think this could be a little tiny thing that puts them off that course if they were to have Doc Rivers. I don't think ultimately it matters that much. I don't think he's a difference between championship and not, but I think he could be one of those little things that just isn't good enough.
Yeah,
but
for
that
sure.
would be
I think it all matters. I'm lower on the relevance of coaching to lift a team that's that much.
Yeah.
But I think once you get to the top, and the Sixers have been at some point over the last 5 years, one of the top 8 teams in the league several times. And they've never broken into the top 4 in the conference finals. And I think coaching is partly to blame for that. Health is partly to blame. Depth is partly to blame. Backup center, probably, like all these kinds of things. And the other, we've talked about Morey and his answer to us about the backup center issue. And how wrong he was,
incredibly wrong.
And we've really drilled down on it. But there's a school of thought that that I have maybe believed in before, where it's like, look, either Embiid's healthy or he's not, and it just doesn't. If he's not healthy, then we're not fucking winning anything, which in some level is true. But if Embiid's not healthy, Embiid's like 80%, Embiid is has to miss a game. If they can survive that stuff, if he can't play 40 minutes, but he can play 34, you need a little bit more guys that you can trust. Like, that stuff matters. There's more of a gray area than I think that Daryl was willing to concede, and how much of a role the Sixers backup center has played for 4 or 5 years now it just can't be, they overcorrected with Horford, but it just can't be, overstated. Although Paul again was totally fine this year for the most part, and the only issue was really Doc's unwillingness to play him.
Right. Well, and by the way, I would say that there is probably, we had mentioned the coach and the GM being on the same page. I can't imagine that Morey thought playing, like, the DeAndre Jordan thing was a Doc Rivers thing. But
Daryl signed his ass.
Right, but that's, I would love to know about I know you're rarely interested in these things, but the politics of those decisions within the Sixers.
That's an interesting choice for me, because how often, we talk about it on Twitter a lot or whatever, but how often do you go like, I'm not going to sign this guy as a GM across the league. I'm not going to sign this player because my coach is going to play him, and I can't do that. I can't let that happen. And I don't know if Daryl was concerned about that, but Doc, it didn't hurt them, and they made the fucking. I don't know if he would have played Paul Millsap over the course of the season and not played B-ball Paul, but the DeAndre Jordan signing didn't hurt them in the Heat series, aside from the fact that they had no other depth to go to.
Could have been a different player.
Yeah. I mean, he missed the first couple of games, I guess, and then it would have a better player then, but it would have been Paul Millsap or Charles Bassey, and it still wouldn't have worked much. But I wonder how much of I'm not going to sign this player because my coach is going to play him. And if Daryl didn't think about that, or if Daryl thought it and thought it would be okay, he was wrong. He was wrong, and you can't trust Doc's instincts to play a veteran simply because, they both saw friggin' 2005 movie at the same time.
There's just a push and a pull there and I go back to Doc being hired before Morey. There's just a push and a pull there that I think is probably pretty interesting. I actually have a Morey question for you after we finish up with Doc, right after I talk about MortgageCS. MortgageCS, CS stands for Concierge Service. MortgageCS is where you need to go if you need a mortgage. If you're buying a home, you need a mortgage. If it's your first time buying a home, you don't know what you're doing. I certainly didn't know what I was doing. So MortgageCS is a mortgage broker, not a mortgage lender. They're not the ones giving you the money. What they want to do is go and find the best rate for you. But also along that journey, they want you to understand why everything is working the way that they do. So not only are they going to get you the mortgage, but they're going to help you understand better for next time. And when I talked to them about what they do and why they do it, that was more important. Alex from MortgageCS actually said to me, he was like, even if they don't get the mortgage through us, if they walk away from this knowing more about the entire process and how it works, that is more important to us, and they'll remember us for it. And I believe them. They are also not tied to any of these mortgage lenders. They don't have any side deals with them. So the only person they're beholden to is you. MortgageCS. Go to mortgagecs.com/Ricky. That is mortgagecs.com/Ricky. There you'll see all the amazing Ricky page they've put together for us. But you'll learn about MortgageCS and how they make sure that they're lean and mean so they're able to pass that sort of saving part onto you. It's not a huge company, right? It's 8 or 9 people. Also, they're not spending a bunch of money on advertising except for this. So their entire thing is getting you the best rate and helping you learn. Call or text their CEO, Ben, at any time, even right now, 267-391-7425. Ask him what he thinks about Doc. 267-391-7425, or go to mortgagecs.com/Ricky. They're here for buying a new home, refinancing, debt consolidation, and being your partner through the process of getting a mortgage. Again, mortgagecs.com/Ricky. Call or text their CEO, Ben, 267-391-7425. At any time, they're available night, day, weekends, whenever you want them, because when you're going to buy a home, you might need one of those pre-qualification letters at 9 o'clock at night on a Tuesday. Read the reviews on Google. They're all great. Again, mortgagecs.com/Ricky, or call or text their CEO, Ben, at 267-391-7425. What is before we get to Daryl, with 10 being it's an emergency and 1 being I don't really care at all, what is your level of need to replace Doc before next season?
I mean, mostly out of just spite. I'm just tired of his shit, I think.
He's annoying. That's what I said. He's fucking annoying.
He's a total dickhead.
Yep.
He's an absolute dickhead. He's proud of it. There was a report it was Jake Fisher, our friend Jake Fisher, talking about why Doc might want to come back to LA, and it's because of reporting that there's golfing here and he loves the restaurants and he knows some of the people that own the restaurant, those kinds of things. It's all right, man, look, good for you. Seriously good for you that's what it is. But I would love to get to the conference finals for the first time since I was 11. So that would make me feel good. You could probably golf whenever. In other places.
There's a long off season for you.
Long off season many times. Mm-hmm. And also, is golf that fun? Do you really like golf that much? I would love to see what Doc's like on the golf course. Probably cursing other people out and blaming the wind or whatever. He's taking accountability for his short game. I'm taking accountability, and that's why it's everyone else's fault.
Every time I saw Monty Williams, by the way, say, that's on me, that's my fault, I have to fix it, I just like, it made me sick to my stomach.
No, he'll never do that.
Yeah.
He thinks he does a great job. I don't know if you heard that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I would like him to be gone. I don't think it's like wildly necessary for him to be gone. It's not like, agenda item number 1 on the offseason thing, but it'd be nice. It'd be nice to get some red meat. I would take some red meat to fucking chow down on that and let him go somewhere else and pass him to another member of my household.
The Morey thing. So I was thinking back. I was actually...
Oh, wait. We just got a chat from CJ. Embiid just got named to All-NBA second team, not first team.
That's good. Congrats, Joel.
That's bullshit.
Wait, who was first team? Oh, Jokic.
Jokic.
Yeah. Well, we had to see
Second
that coming,
MVP
right?
voting. And now the first team and the second team then play each other in a big game. And whoever wins gets $1 billion. It's bullshit. He's one of the 5 best players in the league. If we're gonna do all NBA, we need to do this, which we don't need to do it. Then like Embiid was the second best player in the NBA. He should be on the list.
2 centers. Sometimes you come in second.
It doesn't matter. They're not playing.
But it's a team.
It's fantasy. It's not a team. A team
but
has
it
to
is
play together.
a team. It is
No,
a
it's
team.
not.
It is. All-star teams are constructed.
This isn't an all-star team though.
But even end of the year Pro Bowl teams are constructed as teams are.
Pro Bowl teams play. If this was
even
a team
if they
that played,
didn't,
then we
all
could talk
pro,
about it.
NFL All Pro is the same thing. There's not
you
6
can't
quarterbacks.
have 2 quarterbacks on the field at the same time. You can have 2 like guys who play ostensibly different positions. If Embiid and Jokic were on the same team in the world in a team, if they got drafted by a team, they would play together.
Position though. They
would play together. They would absolutely play together. You wouldn't be like, I got to bench him. I got to play him 20 minutes a night because we have this other guy. It's not a team. They're not playing. It's not a team. Embiid being in second team is a joke.
I just think he should have been first team over Jokic is what I believe. In any case, is it possible? So I spent a day and a half in a Philadelphia emergency room. Thank you to everybody at Jefferson this past weekend as my dad, raising money in the Eagles Autism Challenge, fell off a bike, hurt his hip, hit his hip, hit his head, ended up in the ER. Now, of course, everyone who comes in, not everyone, a lot of people who come in, doctors and nurses, ask him about sports, which is honestly my nightmare. But somebody asked him about the Sixers, and he said, Daryl Morey's only made 2 big trades, and they're both James Harden. And I chuckled to myself. But then I was thinking about it over time. Is it possible, I was thinking about the way we see Harden right now and the way that he saw the backup center position and the way he mentioned it to us. Is it possible that he has a blind spot for just basketball, for a human element, for is it possible he just looks at numbers and goes, I know I sound like our enemies, but is it possible he looks at numbers and goes, no backup centers are good. This isn't going to matter. Is it possible that is it possible he looks at James Harden and looks at the numbers and says well, you know what? The numbers say he's effective and, I'm just going to keep betting on that. Is it possible that he doesn't, I know he watches a ton of basketball and loves basketball, but is it possible he puts too much faith in the data he looks at and not enough at what he sees and feels?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think it's a reasonable question to ask, but we don't have access to the kind of data he's actually looking at. It's not.
That's true.
Generally public information. The basketball reference stuff is what it is, and it's helpful to some extent, and then it's unhelpful when you try to make it a big blanket statement. I mean, we talked about it when we acquired him. It is, as much as James Harden was probably the biggest star potentially available this season to acquire for Ben, it's still a level of getting the gang back together, human emotion type thing from the guy. Mm-hmm. You saw the hug off the airplane.
It was way too emotional a hug. I mean, I'm not judging.
Yeah, so I think I honestly think yes, there's a chance that, you know, I'm not a watch the games guy. I mean, I watch the games. I'm not the guy who says watch the games, because everybody watches the games. There's nobody that works in the NBA that's not watching the games.
For sure.
The people that aren't watching the games are like the people like covering the NBA on halftime shows. They're not watching the games. But it's an interesting question, because I think Daryl probably initially at some point in various decisions he's made has maybe trusted the numbers too much and thought it would work out. But this is part of this is a non-numbers situation, that he went and got his boy. Like, he got his friend.
Yeah, right.
And like,
but a
there's
guy
an
that
emotional attachment to this player, who's like close with his family and stuff. So the idea that like it could work, it's not working in Brooklyn. He doesn't look right in Brooklyn. He's probably seen Harden dog it before and goes like, well, if he's dogging it, he's still pretty good for dogging it. Like, maybe he could amp it up for the Sixers and be better. And he just like wasn't. So maybe it was the idea of like faith in there being that other gear to Harden that he didn't have this year. And everyone's hoping that it's, if he comes back to the Sixers, which I'm assuming he does, that he would have a nice healthy offseason of adding a little bit more burst back to that hamstring for the next couple of years. But I don't know. That's another. That's like, what are the odds of that? Is it 30-70 or something like that? And what decision does Daryl make based on that? Or is it like, I'm gonna look him in the eye and I'm gonna trust him? Like, it's hard to know. It's hard to know. We talk a lot about uncertainty with prospects, right?
Yeah.
And I really like prospects that
exist,
are role players that will work hard, that will play their ass off and defend.
Sure. Yep.
Those are my kinds of players. I tend to shy away from or get a little more nervous about star level talent in the draft that is more raw or won't defend.
Right.
Of like
your Michael Porter
gunner
Jr.'s.
types. What'd you say?
Your Michael Porter Jr.'s.
Well, he blows. But but like guys that just can hit from wherever, but like don't really defend. And it's like, well, how's that going to play from, a freshman year where he was like, okay, and the percentages weren't great, whatever. We talk about that being an uncertainty. I tend to go with the more certain role player outside of like the top one or two type things. But as far as the rest of a guy's career goes, when they're this late in their career and they've got a lot of mileage on them, it is uncertain to know, like, is he going to take his diet and sleep schedule and all the whatever bullshit, nutrition, health seriously so that he can extend his prime? And not knowing that, it's like, it's those kinds of in-between gray area conversation types where the fact that Daryl just probably like likes James Harden as a guy is going to inform that decision. It's an odd thing. And I know you asked the question of like, is he too one way? And I kind of answered it, well, did he maybe in this situation go to the other way?
Right.
Of like the, A's scouts and Moneyball saying like he's got a hot girlfriend or whatever the fuck. It's just an interesting question. It's just like, we don't know.
Yeah. So team building moving forward. Actually, before team building, I mentioned, should I talk about Ksebe here? Yeah. I mentioned MortgageCS earlier. They'll help you get a mortgage. Adam Ksebe will help you get a house. Help you get a house. How do you spell his name? That's what everybody asks me. How do you spell Adam Ksebe's name? Repeat after me. Ksebe. Ksebe. Adam Ksebe will help you get a house. He specializes in the Delaware beaches, which are superior, if you've ever seen, to the New Jersey beaches, especially if you're buying, because the taxes are much lower. And all these, now the time where people can work from home half the time, wouldn't you rather be doing that at a Delaware beach house? He and his team, Long and Foster in Bethany Beach, cover every square inch of Delaware, from Wilmington all the way down to Rehoboth and Dewey Beach and Bethany and Lewis and all those places. They also cover Maryland, but also Adam can help you sell your house. Also, even if you're not looking in Delaware or Maryland, he will find you the right realtor. So you go right to Adam, and he will ask you what you're looking for, and he will interview realtors until he finds you the right one. Buying a house is hard. It is stressful now more than ever. There's not a lot of houses out there if you want to get one, so you need someone you can trust. Adam is the guy. 302-864-8643. 302-864-8643. That is his cell. You can call him or text him. I love telling you to text our sponsors while we're doing the pod. 302-864-8643, or email him, adam@processrealtor.com. A lot of our listeners have gone to Adam. Every one of them happy. In your corner. He's the guy. Adam Ksebe, the official realtor of the process. All right. Team building for next year. So here's who's under contract. Joel Embiid, Tobias Harris, Furkan Korkmaz, George Niang, Matisse Thybulle. They have an option on, right? I think Thybulle, which I'm sure they'll pick up. Danny Green's salary is not guaranteed of $10 million. Tyrese Maxey, Jaden Springer, Shake Milton, Isaiah Joe, Paul Reed, Charles Bassey. As I mentioned, they cannot trade a first-round pick. If they do have their pick this year, they could draft that player and trade that player.
Yeah.
Let's say, and you and I are not cap guys. We're watch the game guys, not cap guys. But let's say, I think I understand this. Let's say Harden signs for less than the max. He signs for $30 million. They'd still be over the cap, but they're not a tax team or an apron team or whatever the fuck that means, and they have the mid-level exception, and they can spend $7 million on a player. Do the players that they have on the roster now, plus that, put you in position enough, like, I guess without trading Maxey, how do you get the players that you need, given the very little wiggle room that you have?
I mean, you can't trade Maxey. Maxey is just way too relevant to this team. To take the slowest team in the NBA and make them even slower, it would drive me fully insane if that happened. He's the only guy on the team that has burst. That would just be unconscious, and he's young and he's a delight. It can't happen.
So could I, just before we continue, I just want to ask you this question based on that. Then we would agree that all this talk about Brad Beal, like things like that, do not happen without trading Maxey. We can agree, right? You don't have anything to trade for Brad Beal if it's not Maxey, and there will certainly be a better offer somewhere else.
Trade type
What's
thing.
that?
If it's like a Harden sign and trade type thing, or if
But
they
I mean,
like
adding
love Matisse, like I don't think that they have enough to trade to Brad Beal with Harden here, unless you do Maxey, and I just don't.
Right. That's just
the
all
next
I was asking.
3 years of Brad Beal. I don't believe will be better than the next 3 years of Maxey.
Really?
And I think that Maxey is obviously way cheaper and way more certain to like play his ass off than Brad Beal, who's like, been dinged up and seems to really like DC, even though they're constantly losing. And he's just going to be like, a lot of times in here, Beal would be like a off-ball movement guy.
Mm-hmm.
And so if he's off-ball movement guy, like how much, I mean, he's better than a lot of other guys that you would get to fill that role, but you're paying him a lot of money to fill that role for the most part when Harden has the ball or Embiid has the ball, which will be a lot of the time.
I'm not saying I disagree, because I do worry about I've mentioned the loser energy quotient of the Harden-Beal backcourt. I think there's a very, very high likelihood there's too much loser energy in that backcourt. But then you think back, and this is long ago, but Beal's only 29. Like 4 or 5 years ago, when they were in the playoffs, Beal was a motherfucker in the playoffs. Like, he was a real playoff player, and he has been just throwing it out there, playing devil's advocate. John Wall gets hurt. They make a lot of bad decisions. They get fucking Russell Westbrook. Like, the situation couldn't be worse for Beal. And I would ask you this: if you were getting that Beal from like 4 or 5 years ago, would you trade Maxey if it was that guy?
In a vacuum, I think absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. I really liked Brad Beal for a long time. I think he's just kind of old. He doesn't really defend. He never defended a ton, but now he really doesn't defend that much. I think he's improved as a distributor. He's obviously a great shooter, even though he didn't shoot well this year. The hope is that the wrist was bothering him and he'll come back and shoot well next year. But he's like towards the end of his prime for a pretty much one-way player who's not one of the best 15, 20 players in the league. And Maxey is going to be underpaid until his second max contract. And I just don't, that's really good. That's just really, really good value. And I don't think you can say enough about how like important Maxey is to the spirit of this team and to the speed of this team. And his improvement, as I've said, from year 1 to year 2 is just like so much that like you just don't know how much better he's going to keep getting. And you'll feel really fucking stupid if you were like, yeah, he got a lot better year 1 to year 2 and became like basically 18 points per game guy on good percentages with an improving 3-point shot and an incredible attitude. But like we didn't see him continuing to get better. Like you should have. Like I just think he's good right now. I would trade Jaden Springer for whatever you got to trade, even though I think Jaden Springer is going to be a very nice NBA player.
Yes, of course.
And he's like still raw offensively. But like Maxey's already good. Like, he's already really good. And to trade him for a guy that's going to get worse quicker, and leave yourself empty of like guys who play fast and are dynamic with the ball. I just wouldn't. I don't think it's a good idea for a guy that had his worst year of his career last year in Brad Beal. You're just every time you describe Brad Beal, you're describing James Harden, but 4 years younger. A little bit. A little worried about it. I mean, Harden obviously a better distributor, Beal a better off-ball shooter. But yeah, you don't know. I guess you don't know when the cliff happens, and the cliff might have happened last year. I don't think that's likely, but it might have, and I know that Maxey's going to keep being good. So, the problem I find myself in, and I'm trying to bring this up because I feel like if I don't, we won't talk about it. That I am really skeptical that they can build themselves, and I'm not saying Brad Beal is the guy. I want to be clear. And obviously you lose something when you lose Maxey. Obviously, future and current. But I look at this it just seems impossible to get there without doing it. I just don't know how they're going to do it. I think about like he's already really good. Like they lose if they lose him, then that's a step back in a bunch of different ways that they will then have to be like, well, how do we get better replacing that stuff? It's just trading one problem for another. But it depends on who you get. But also like people are talking about trading Tobias. Like it cost a first round pick to get off of Horford. It cost a first round pick to get off of Josh Richardson. Like Tobias Harris played fine this year. No one is letting you off the hook by giving you, everybody's like, well, if we just get two good players for Tobias Harris. First round pick to get off of Josh Richardson. It was Josh Richardson for Seth Curry straight up and Horford and 2 picks for Danny Green. You're right. I'm sorry. But I would say that said, I would say Tobias Harris is a lot closer to Horford in this case than Josh Richardson. $30 million. I just don't think anyone's going to let you off the hook with Tobias Harris and say, yes, here's 2 players that are both as helpful as Tobias Harris, making half of what Tobias Harris is making in exchange for Tobias Harris. It just doesn't. No, that makes sense. I think it would be. I think you're gonna. The Sixers probably can't afford to attach what they need to attach to Tobias, unless it's to a team that loves Matisse. That makes it worthwhile. I think next year when he's an expiring contract, that's a different story. But this year, while there's still 2 years left, and Tobias is playing at a relatively high level, at least coming off this playoffs. Like if they trade Tobias for nothing, just empty salary, like friggin', Chris Kamen's corpse or something, then Chris Kaman. Oh my God. He's not, you're going to be a worse team. Like Tobias is helpful. He wasn't for a lot of the time this year, but the last 2 months of the season into the playoffs, what he was. So they can't just give him away for nothing either. I think that the way to improve this team is to make like targeted, helpful, like bargain bin signings that work out, to trade Matisse and maybe Korkmaz for salary wise for someone that could be like a carry the bench guy with a little bit of burst and a little bit of shooting and a little bit of defense, like a solid two-way player, which there's not a ton of those guys. Will Barton comes to mind, but I don't know how much that would help. And then
would you trade?
Upgrade? Sorry,
Okay.
let me just finish that. You upgrade
sure.
Charlie Brown Jr. to like try to see if he's the Matisse guy this year, plays like hard defense and is burst. And Jaden Springer becomes helpful. Charles Bassey becomes helpful. Isaiah Joe becomes a better shooter, or you trade him for somebody else who doesn't. Like those kinds of like fringe moves that become like, hey, this guy all of a sudden became your eighth guy and you didn't expect it out of him. And they just have to get a couple of those to work out. And then the bigger thing is hoping that a year of a healthy offseason for Harden and this team together gives them some level of continuity. But you also have to replace Danny Green, which is a really tough sell, especially if you're moving Matisse. Obviously, it wasn't, he's got a ton of problems offensively, but defensively, they're going to need some wing defense.
So the plan is Jaden Springer and Charlie Brown get good enough to be rotation players.
I mean, I liked what I saw out of
at a
Charlie Brown for a
championship.
lot of the year. You just need guys to like play hard and hit enough threes. Like you're not asking them to like run the offense like they're James Harden. You're just asking them to be like a ninth man. And it would happen for Miami. It would happen for San Antonio. It would happen for a lot of those teams. And the Sixers just need that to happen for them. They need to identify like undervalued talent, whether that's like going to fucking Europe and getting some guy off a team, whoever Vasilije Micic's teammate is or whatever the fuck, because they traded him to Oklahoma City. And those kinds of guys, and just being like, hey, this guy's all of a sudden a helpful player. They don't need 15 like starters. They have 4 starters right now. They just need like, give me 6 playable bench players and a little depth after that you're churning through to see like who pops.
Would you trade? You were talking about Will Barton. I don't think they're getting Will Barton, but would you trade, like, let's say you trade Thibault and Korkmaz and let's say Danny Green, for salary or whatever, and a second for Eric Gordon?
I think they can do better than that.
Okay.
Because I think Eric Gordon is a guy that they've been trying to get off for a long time in Houston.
I think he was pretty good last year. I don't remember. I didn't watch them very often. But
I don't think any of those games mattered. He's one of those times. I mean, he like theoretically plays hard and he's tough to move and he can shoot from a little bit like very far away. But is he actually a good shooter? Is he just willing?
No, he's a good shooter. Come on.
What do you think he shoots for his career? He shoots a lot.
35%.
But that's not a good shooter.
Well, if you're shooting 12 a game, it is. And you can shoot from far away.
All right, he shot 41% from 3 last year. That's good. But
Okay.
the previous years were 33 and 32, and then 36 and 36.
Yeah. So I was, but
he's fine. I like Eric Gordon. I've liked Eric Gordon for a while, but he's also 33 and he's making a bunch of money. And if you're like assuming that he's going to be like a big role, that's your big move. Maybe. I mean, I'm not writing it off. I think they can do a little bit better than that if they're putting the Danny contract and Matisse. And Korkmaz, I know we're just hypothetical. We're just trade machining blind here, but and a pick or whatever. But those kinds of things, that is a type of move that I would definitely entertain for sure.
All right, where is it?
It's just something's got to work out. Like I know that you've defended Daryl a lot, and it's like he was in a tough spot, which absolutely he was. But like the reputation Daryl has is one of the 5 best executives in the league, if not of all time. And that's a reputation. And you got to pull some shit out of your ass sometimes. And he didn't do it this year, and he has to do it next year.
So Brian asks, and this, I think your answer is yes. And this came from a question that Brian emailed in. He said, do you think that Maxey can get to a level where he can be the second or third best player on a legitimate title team during Embiid's window? If we're assuming that Embiid's window is the next 2 to 3 years.
Yes.
Wow. Okay. The hard to stomach YouTube comment of the week comes from Action.
I mean, look at where we're at right now. I mean, like Luka Spencer Dinwiddie is the third best player on a conference finals team. And
that's fair.
And go to Miami and it's like,
but they're not. Yeah, but they're not a contender.
Tyler Hero is the third best player. I mean, Lowry's been bad, so like maybe, or PJ Tucker if you want to talk about that. Like, you need like the best guy to be the best guy, which Luka was for a lot of the playoffs, and Jimmy has been for a lot of the playoffs. And then you need a bunch of guys that can like.
Tough.
What'd you say?
It's third best he could be. Second best is a
sure.
Tough
Yeah,
fight,
you said second or third. I think second
yep.
would be more of a stretch, but I think third is possible. Also, it's like Damian Lillard was drafted 6th overall. Maxey could have been drafted, I think 6th overall. I might be wrong. It might have been 5th. I said it more confidently than I was. But Maxey could have easily been drafted that high. He shouldn't have fallen that far. He was up that high going into his freshman year. And then he went to 21, and we didn't expect as much out of him. But like, he has that level of pedigree. And so if you think Damian Lillard could be the second or third best player on a championship team, that's the path that Maxey's on. I don't think it's certain that he's going to get there. He might plateau out, but I don't think it's crazy to think, especially look around, third best player it's not that far. But you need the best player to be the best player, which Embiid is capable of doing and has to continue. And you just need like a bunch of depth and an identity and like guys who fucking play hard on defense, which the Sixers just didn't have this year.
The hard to stomach YouTube comment of the week comes from Action. Wells Fargo is jinxed. The Soul have been the only team ever to win a championship in there, and they had their entire league fold 2 years later. Possible. I don't think we can.
I mean, I don't see how an arena named after a predatory bank
oh, no.
has any bad vibes.
Well, I don't think they named it. I mean, it's most. The Phillies won a championship in Citizens Bank Park.
I don't know. Are they as predatory? I don't know.
Not as financial predatory. All right, yeah. I'm not accusing any banks of being predatory. I want to stay clean on that one. That's you.
Lucas Oil Arena. I think the Colts have it. I think they got it locked in.
LL Pavorsky Jewelers was the first sponsor of the Rights to Ricky Sanchez podcast. We want to congratulate Joe and Lindsay. They are Rights to Ricky Sanchez LL engagement ring buyer number 256, and they got engaged. LL posted the pictures on Twitter with or without their permission with the hashtag "Look at that ring." Just LL really, pushing the most important thing there. LL, as I said, the first sponsor of the Rights to Ricky Sanchez podcast. If you got to buy an engagement ring, you want to stay in the Ricky community. You don't want to go in a jewelry store you don't know anything about. They jump on you, salespeople. You don't know what they're selling you. You want somebody like LL. It's got a chill environment, free chocolate, free water. He's in a good suit. He's lost a bunch of weight. He smells good. He's a good person. That's who you want to buy an engagement ring from. LL has been sponsoring the pod for, 6 or 7 of our 9 years, and over 260 Rights to Ricky Sanchez listeners have purchased engagement rings from LL. Springtime's a great time to get engaged. Summertime's a great time to get engaged. Do it down the shore, whatever. And LL is the person that you want to buy the engagement ring from, or need an anniversary gift, need a birthday present, or a just because I love you present. LL Pavorsky Jewelers. What is with the fucking horn out there? Jesus, I live on a quiet residential street. You don't need to honk like that. If you want to buy an engagement ring from LL Pavorsky, call them 215-627-2252. Set up an appointment. Email him, lee@llpavorsky.com. Tweet at him, @LLPavorsky. 707 Walnut, been there for over 30 years. Always a sponsor of our charities, Providence Animal Center and Coded by Kids. LL Pavorsky Jewelers.
Only a predator for fair prices and great customer service.
So, Steph Curry has won 4 championships, right? 4?
3.
3? They won 2 with Curry, or 2 with Durant, and 1 before Durant. Yeah? Is that it? Okay. If he were to win, I know you're going to say no. If he wins 1 more, he's tied with LeBron. If he wins 2 more, do you think in like an all-time argument, you could make an argument that Curry is better than LeBron?
I don't think so, because of defense. I mean, Steph is a great is a good defender, especially for his size, but he's over the course of his career has gotten exploited. And I think because LeBron has done it with like so many different teams, Steph has done it like in this system, which has been built around him for sure. But like, I would be interested if you took Brad Beal off Washington, if you traded them right now, I'd be interested to see like how he would do. I don't want it, but like for a thought experiment, it'd be interesting to see like how good is he, how elite is he? Because he is obviously one of the best players of all time, and has certainly changed the game, maybe more than LeBron has. Maybe the most anyone's changed the game and like the culture since like Iverson. Yeah. But I think LeBron's just still the better player because of how many more things he does. But
I do think Curry staying in one place, sort of like being a player that everybody wants to, that it seems like people want to play with.
For sure.
And as great as LeBron is, there is a thing with Curry where you are terrified in a way that I just can't think of another player, actually. Like only Jordan, really. That when you're cheering for the other team, like you just, even if you're watching the team try to defend him, they're terrified of him, you know? And if he were to win 5 in this run, even this 4th would be a really incredible feat, given everything that's happened. I don't know. I think people are talking about like maybe he's top 10. I think he's actually like underrated, Curry, historically at this point. You know?
That might be true.
Yeah.
That might be true.
The mailbag. And I assume you think Boston's going to win the series now?
I was out of town this weekend, so I didn't really watch that much. I'm hoping for not Boston. I wouldn't like that.
It'd be tough.
That would be insult to injury. The Jimmy thing, like Jimmy didn't really do anything to the Sixers aside from they decided they picked the wrong guy over him. And so I feel only animosity towards ourselves and various regimes that were here making those decisions. But I don't feel much animosity towards Jimmy. I want to beat him. Like, obviously, I wanted Embiid to beat him. But
Celtics would be tough.
Celtics would be tough. But they're a really good team.
They are. They got a lot of guys.
Guys who defend their ass off and make quick decisions. And, like, Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum both didn't do that for a lot of time. So a lot of credit has to go to Ime Udoka and I guess Brad Stevens to like get them into like changing the way that their natural state is, which is like a little bit slower and methodical. And now they play fast. They move the ball. They make quick decisions. They pass it. They defend their ass off. All of them. And the Sixers, that's the slowest, least dog mentality guys maybe in the league.
I would just kill for Marcus Smart, man. Just fucking love that.
Yeah, it's crazy
guy.
that he's been on that team for so long, and it seems like always constantly his contract is expiring and they might trade him and people are getting tired of him, and it's just like he's just been there. He's just fucking been there, and he kicks ass.
Mailbag. This comes from Ari. Rights to Ricky Sanchez at gmail.com. Of course, it's the off season where we thrive, and we also need your help. Remember to send in one basketball, one non-basketball question. Of course, bathroom questions welcome in the offseason. This comes from Ari. Hi, Spike, Mike, and CJ. Not sure if you guys have watched Severance, but essentially it's a show that splits your work and social life into 2 completely different worlds. What if this existed for the Sixers?
I'm halfway through Severance. I think I watched 4 episodes. It's quite good. I think you would like it. It's intense. It's stylized. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. It's right up my alley. It's one of the darkest shows visually I think I've ever seen. Like the non-work scenes are so dark.
Yeah, a little bit too much sometimes. A little bit too much, but I think it's a good show so far. And I've heard people love the finale. Would I do that for the Sixers? I honestly think I do. I think it took me many years of doing this podcast.
Yep.
But I think that I'm pretty close to there. There used to be I mean, like, in high school and whatever, when the Eagles would lose on a Sunday, like I would dread Monday, like dread it, and have to like talk about it and be like so upset and like go over the game and with everybody and just like, oh, this is miserable. Talking to people that I don't respect a lot of the times of like what their opinions are, all that shit. And with the Sixers, it was the same way for a while. And, you know, if you're in a writer's room with people that are sports fans or whatever weighing in and stuff. But I think that we've suffered so much with this team that maybe to your point earlier of like how we kind of agree with some of the criticisms, like I just like, I'm a little bit immune to it at this point.
Yeah.
It doesn't, I bare my soul in this podcast sometimes in an embarrassing way, in a way that I look back on and regret, but it doesn't stick with me quite as much as it used to. And so I feel proud of myself for that and being able to get past it quicker.
I would say my request to the people listening to this pod who I love and I've expressed my love for a million times is the way to keep up this separation is if you see me or one of us in real life, I want to talk to you. I want to say hi. I want to talk about anything but the Sixers. You know what my takes are. Like I give them 3 hours a week. Just anything
well, they
but
want you to hear
Sixers.
theirs.
Yeah, I'm fine hearing theirs. That's fine. I just don't want to argue about them. I'll give you the, yeah, boy, that sucked. Whew, can't believe it. But let's leave it at that and talk about the weather. It's anything.
Yeah, something interesting like that.
Mm-hmm. And then finally, this comes from Jake. Hey, Team Ricky, a.k.a. CJ and those other guys.
That's right.
Ugh. Happy off season. This question got passed around while hanging with some friends over the weekend. I thought it would make a good jigsaw for the pod during the off season. Here we go. Option number 1. You are told the exact date and time and manner of your death. The death will not be quick or painless and is not the kind of thing that you can plan to avoid beforehand. No actions or decisions you make can change how this happens, and you must live the rest of your life with the knowledge of when and how you die, always in the back of your mind. You're always allowed to tell others, but the only proof you have is your own word. Okay. Number 2. For the rest of your life, the battery capacity on all of your charged devices, phone, tablet, laptop, Bluetooth, headphones, smartwatches, electric car, never reaches above 45%. It still drains and charges at the normal rate, but only up to 45% capacity every time. Using your devices while plugged in will not drain the battery until they're unplugged. Thanks for another great season of podcasting, and also fuck you for keeping me invested in this goddamn team. Boy, is it a fucking sad state of humanity that we're comparing these two things.
I don't think it's necessary. Some people might find peace in the idea that they know they're not going to die until they're whatever, 78.
Sure. What do you think?
I do think there's value in being like, okay, I only have 45% forever. And I have to be more judicious of when I use my phone or whatever.
Maybe you'd use your phone less.
I think that it would absolutely make that happen.
Yeah.
I know Sixers Adam is a big low battery mode always guy.
Yeah. You know what I hate? When Apple turns off low battery mode for me. They're like, hey, your battery life is such that you don't need this anymore.
Right.
Come on.
There's got to be an option to change that. I don't think either of these options are bad. I think it could be helpful. It'd be nice to have electric car charged 100%, but I think it could be mostly helpful. I could also see myself really freaking out at the death thing, but in the same way, like the thing about these kinds of, Black Mirror or whatever type hypotheticals of knowing is like, okay, if I know I'm going to die in 2060, then like if I run into traffic in like a week, that means I'm not going to die of that or whatever. It's like those kinds of weird things. Would I test it? Like those kinds of things. Would I be a daredevil for a while? That'd be fun.
Yeah.
So I don't know. But there's also not quite the difference between dying and like being severely maimed and injured it's not nothing. I wouldn't like to live like that.
Yeah.
I'll probably pick the battery life and hope it allows me to cut down on
prioritize. Yeah. I want the pod for Daredevil Mike. Hey, Mike, what'd you do this morning? Oh, I jumped off the 47th floor of the apartment building next to us. Yeah, just to see what would happen.
I've jumped out of an airplane twice. That was cool. I've done some skydiving.
Dude, I've always wanted to, and with my back, what the jump out of a plane guy told me about landing. He said, best case scenario, it's like stepping off of a step. He said, worst case scenario, it's like running at full speed and falling. Running at full speed and falling would be bad news for my back. But I want to do it so badly.
I hurt my knees on the second fall.
Oh, really?
Not quite good. I was just like kept him up the whole time, and then the guy behind me like fell over, and it was the whole thing. I was like, I thought you were doing the legs. I thought I was just hanging on and just waiting. So I don't know if I fucked it up, but I got hurt a little bit. But it was very fun. Really tight on the crotch. It's a long time to be like yanked at from the crotch with the hooks and stuff. It's really in there. They're digging in. So that was tough, but it was very fun. It was very fun.
Yeah. Twice you did it, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Man, I want to do it. See, that's the sort of thing. If I knew I was going to die soon, I would just go jump out of the plane.
There you go.
Just so I could. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is this option? I wonder if it's a real thing. If I could just find out when I'm going to die. The phone thing. Yeah, I would pick the phone thing as well. I think I would pick the phone thing. Anything to spend less time on the phone, I think would be a win.
Yeah.
All right. Well, the off season's here. I think June 1st is when the Nets have to decide if they're taking the Sixers pick or not. So we have that coming up.
I didn't know that. I've been wondering that. Okay,
June 1st.
That's good. That'll be good to know. That'll give us some excitement level, whether it's for now or in the future. Theoretically, next year's draft class is better. So, if things do go horribly wrong next year, we can get back into tanking and lottery parties and stuff. If we would have the pick, but also if they decide to defer, then we get the pick this year, and I can start to speculate about drafting a player that would be immediately helpful, because I believe in that possibility, even though Doc does not.
If they don't have a first round pick, do we still do big boards?
What else are we gonna do? But it might be a little pointless.
Well, it's always kind of pointless.
That's right.
Yeah, we'll do it. We'll do big boards. Do big boards either way. And then we'll figure out what happens with Doc Rivers. I am still keeping to my word that I do not believe he will coach the Sixers in 2022-23. But it might be a little while before. It'll be a crushing moment to wake up and see the Shams tweet that says the Lakers have agreed to terms with Darvin Ham or something. Like, that'll be
It is interesting. To that end, most teams, it's just them and Charlotte left, right?
Yep.
That don't have a coach. So something's got to get this. I mean, maybe they're just taking their time, but for the most part, teams like to get their guy quick.
Well, the Sixers waited till what? Fucking August?
Unless they want one of the guys from one of these four teams still available. But none of those guys are on that list, right? Where's Kenny Atkinson?
Is he anywhere? So Darvin Ham is Milwaukee.
Yeah.
Terry Stotts is nowhere, right?
Yeah. Terry Stotts is a good coach.
Kenny Atkinson is
Golden State.
Golden State. There you go.
There it is.
Yeah.
That's what I thought. That's wise. All right, so maybe someone's holding off on that until they get out of there. But they signed friggin' Mike Brown. So, I don't know.
We'll talk to you this weekend. Are you done with TTP?
Yeah, you know, like face. I certainly do.